in Food and Agriculture Organization and the task manager of the Agenda 21 on Sustainable Agriculture and Rural Development. He established, coordinated, and implemented the UN Partnership Initiative on Conservation and Adaptive Management of Globally Important Agricultural Heritage Systems in many countries around the world. He will talk about sustainable food system, agricultural heritage, and biodiversity nexus. Please, Dr. Parviz. Thank you, I'm mute. You are mute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for this conference organization. I would like to thank Islamic World Academy of Science that have invited me to this conference. I would be as brief as possible, although the subject is quite extensive. And I would be talking about sustainable food system, agriculture, heritage, and biodiversity nexus, particularly because, as you may know, we will have World Summit on a sustainable food system in October, organized by UN. And of course, I am contributing to that, and I would invite everybody to actually follow some of the debates on this subject. Now, first, a few words about World Agriculture Heritage Foundation. It's an international NGO to support countries in promotion of their globally and nationally important agricultural heritage system through technical assistance and capacity building, education, training of young generation, young farmer generation, empowerment and capacity development of globally important agriculture heritage and nationally important agriculture heritage communities, and advocacy and fundraising for agriculture heritage system. Now, I start by talking about our current food system, which we need to feed over 7 billion people, that more than half of them are living in the cities. Near 1 billion of them have too little to eat, as you could see from statistics of FAO. There is 1.6 billion people, more than the hungry ones, which eat too much. And then we are wasting, unfortunately, 30% of our food. So this is a global sort of picture of our food system. And in the past 50 years, since the Green Revolution, of course, we had an increment of world cultivated lands about 12% and irrigated areas about 120%, and agricultural increase in food production of 200%. This is, of course, a very, very successful achievement, but unfortunately, this has created a lot of deforestation, land degradation, climate change, salinization, desertification, poverty, and migration, as I am trying to show in these pictures. These pictures are all from our countries, or from Middle East countries, and many of them from Iran, where I am originating, and I'm Iranian, but living in Italy. Now, food security in an era of climate change is a real problem, particularly because those with least resources, like in Africa, have least capacity to adapt and are most vulnerable. These are some of the pictures that you could see how countries are vulnerable to climate change. And unfortunately, we cannot really help much of those particularly poor farmers. Now, during this period of Green Revolution, we had, of course, a lot of water pumping, whether pumping from groundwater, whether wasting the water because of the irrigation systems, which are often not very, very efficient. 1/3 of the world's population live under water scarcity. And these are statistics which we developed and we put in SOLAV, State of the World Land and Water Resources Report, which we published in 2011 when I was the Director of Land and Water in FAO. Unfortunately for Near East countries, Middle East countries, but also partly in China and in drylands in India and others, the problem is the aquifer system that produce 40% of our food. Unfortunately, many of these water tables are going more and more down, and we have problems actually pumping water, and water becomes salinized, and we cannot do really the agriculture, particularly under small farming and family farming in many of the drylands in our countries. Loss of biodiversity is one of the biggest problems also associated with intensification of agriculture. It is, as you see, for example, in the case of vegetables here, any of the vegetables we take, say lettuce, which about 30 years ago, there were 497 varieties. Now we have only 36 varieties. Or you take radish or squash or pea or any of them, in this picture, you would see that the reduction of diversity of, for example, vegetable system has been tremendous. The same as for rice. Rice diversity has been lost. For example, in India, 95% of local rice varieties and land races are disappeared. The same in potato. In Peru, for example, loss of potato diversity is over 50%. Of course, thanks to Potato Park, they are trying to rescue some of this biodiversity of agriculture. But nevertheless, these are traditional and community farming systems which are really disappearing. More importantly is loss of functional biodiversity, like pollinators. The pollinators, the bees and insects that pollinate the plants, particularly fruit trees, is the loss because of use of excessive pesticide makes the world really not very productive in terms of biodiversity, and particularly in terms of, for example, fruit. We have to do a lot of effort to have, of course, the diversity which existed in fruit trees and in some other plants. And when we enter in 2050, the challenges ahead are enormous. The first, the increase of population of least developing countries, developed countries, least developed countries, poor countries, which is 3 times more than what is expected or what is projected. And of course, the problem is many of these people live in the cities, in mega cities, which is cities over 8 million people. For example, particularly in Asia and the Middle East, we do have the cities which have to be fed by agriculture, which is actually not quite capable of doing it, particularly when it goes to the poor farmers and poor communities or urban communities who are poor. The problem is also change in our diet and reduction in food diversity. For example, if you take this picture, global grain production, essentially rice, wheat, maize, is 90% of the diversity of grain. Many others like barley, sorghum, millet have disappeared. And unfortunately, this reduced biodiversity has a big impact on our nutrition. What they call it hidden hunger, missing micronutrients in our food. More than 2 billion people worldwide, particularly children and women, are having deficiency in micronutrients. And there is a double burden, disease of what they call it, disease of affluences, the type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart diseases. All of these are related to our health, which is coming from the diversity of food, which is disappearing or reducing. If you look at the public health issues in many countries, particularly in Asia, I didn't have really time to put the Middle East countries in the two picture, but you see many of the countries are having a lot of problem with their obesity. And this is a very, very big problem, which WHO, World Health Organization, is actually alarming. Now, another very big problem is the relation between water and production of the food. For example, to produce 1 kilo of beef, of course, the way this modern industry of meat is doing, they need 15,000 liters of water, while cereal has 10 times less need in water, and fruit even less. But unfortunately, people are eating more and more meat, and this, of course, creates a lot of problem, a lot of pressure on the water. Now, we need to have a sustainable food system to be centered on people and based on rights. We discussed about the farmers' right on genetic resources, but land rights also exist already. International means, particularly in FAO, it has been adopted, and I organized a conference in Brazil in 2006 on agrarian reform and rural development, and of course it is very important. Adopting an integrated territorial approach, which is also very important. This morning, some of the speakers talked about it. Build capacity to manage the change. We have a lot of changes coming. For example, COVID-19 is one of the changes that it was unexpected. But with climate change, we are going to have more and more changes. And we need to build capacity of farmers, capacity of people to manage the change. Redress power disparity through good governance. That's another very big problem in the world. A lot of money in a few people or organizations, while many are poor and almost helpless, and they cannot even have food for their eating, particularly during this pandemic. FAO is giving new statistics about really food insecurity in the world, which is alarming. We need to involve a long-term policy commitment regarding the sustainable food system. We need to really have a better diet. For example, in Mediterranean areas, both North African countries, but also Southern European countries, they have a pact in Mediterranean food system, which I call it Mediterranean food heritage. This is very, very important. We need to look into our food heritage and to look how can we really revitalize some of our food heritage, which is adapted to our health condition, adapted to our ecological condition. We need to be adequately supported and resourced. The other issue is that how to face challenges of sustainable agriculture and food system, because unsustainable consumption and production patterns are causing loss of local food security, biodiversity, and cultural diversity. I'm glad that some of the colleagues spoke about cultural diversity. For me, culture is a part of, say, actually our life. So how can we make production and consumption patterns consistent and supportive of food diversity, biological diversity, and cultural diversity? This is a very, very important work we need to do during these coming years. Globalization threatens cultural diversity and traditional knowledge. That's another very big problem and question. Which measures should be taken to protect traditional knowledge of indigenous and local communities in the face of globalization? How can smallholders and indigenous communities benefit from the global markets without sacrificing their traditional, eco-friendly, sustainable lifestyle and value system? It is very, very important because many of these local food systems are disappearing. Of course, one of the problems is access to genetic resources, as Mrs. Mary Jane mentioned. Local food systems need local seeds because they are adapted to the ecological condition of their environment. Now, the idea of sustainable food system is bringing together food security, human health, biodiversity, environmental health, and economics, and of course, employment. These are the pillars of sustainable food system. Bringing together also ecosystem diversity, socioeconomic diversity, cultural diversity, culinary diversity, curative diversity. In my opinion, and many scientists, diversity is the basis for sustainability. More diverse system we have, better we are resilient to vagaries of the future. So let's do as much as possible to conserve our diversity and enhance our diversity. Another thing is bringing culture in agriculture. For a long time, the aspects of cultural part of agriculture disappeared. Although culture is standing on the shoulder of our ancestors. So traditional farming system, traditional planting, most of traditional varieties and species are very, very important for our future generation. Empowering women and working with local communities. It is not only about industrial agriculture. We have still 70% of the farmers, local farmers, poor farmers, family farmers who are feeding the world. These are the statistics of FAO. In spite of all the industrialization of food, still 70% of the food is coming from poor and small farmers. The reason is that they have to feed themselves, and the majority of poor people are farmers. Now, we need to minimize the trade-off. Of course, productivity is very important, but we need also bring resilience to our system, stability to our system, and equitability to our system to have sustainable agriculture. These are very, very important sort of pillars of the future food system. Intensification without simplification. Unfortunately, we have been intensifying essentially by cutting forests, by cutting the, disappearing, making disappearing the wetlands, etc., etc. But this intensification is not a right intensification. We can, of course, increase food production, but not by simplification of food system. My ideas in early 2005, during my work with FAO and as task manager of World Summit on Sustainable Development, was how can we turn challenge to opportunities of smallholders and family farmers? Because they are more than 1.4 billion people, they are the poorest of the world's poor. They are the victims of globalization, climate change, and expansion of industrial agriculture. They are living often in marginal lands and environments that are prone to flood, drought, storm, and other environmental diseases. But they, as I said, they produce more than 70% of global food. They are the largest number of stewards of environment and its ecosystem services, including biodiversity. Therefore, higher and sustainable productivity increase at their level will have a major impact on poverty reduction, economic growth, and climate change mitigation and adaptation, which I call it win-win option. So that was when I conceptualized the dynamic conservation of globally important agricultural heritage system, or GIAHS program in FAO, which has been having a life of almost 20 years. What are GIAHS? These are globally important agricultural heritage, are remarkable land use system and landscape that are rich in global biodiversity, evolving from co-adaptation of community with its environment and its need and aspiration for sustainable development. We have many of these systems around the world, which are integrated agricultural, forestry, livestock, and fishery system, which is a result of co-adaptation and co-evolution of plant, animal, human, and land races under specific environmental circumstances. Now they are talking about agroecology. This is a new science which is actually recognizing the specificities of places and environment. These systems have been managed through highly adapted social and cultural practices and institutions, important at local, national, and global level, but they are all unfortunately under threat. We have many examples. For example, Morocco Oasis system, or all the North Africa actually have a lot of agricultural heritage system registered by FAO from Tunisia, from Algeria, from Emirat. We have also 2-3 system in Iran. We have, of course, in Asia, we have China rice fish system. We have in Waru in Peru. I don't want to go in details, but there are more than 65 globally important agricultural heritage systems which has been registered. But also there are nationally important agricultural heritage systems. China has been really working very hard on their nationally important agricultural heritage system because it's by itself a continent, and they have so many of already globally important agricultural heritage systems. But what would we do in this program? At global level, essentially identifying, selecting, and recognizing globally important agricultural heritage system. Of course, UNESCO was very important partner during those days, and we have agreements between FAO and UNESCO has been supportive of this program. At national level, by capacity building in policy, regulatory, and incentive mechanism to safeguard these outstanding systems. And at local level, by empowerment of local community and technical assistance for sustainable resource management, promoting traditional knowledge and enhancing viability of these systems through economic incentives. This is a specific sort of benefits of local benefits of globally important agricultural heritage system and global benefits. I don't want to get into the details. Anybody who would like, I will send the copy of my my PowerPoint to you, and eventually if you need any explanation, I could give you explanation. But it is very important that the local benefit are sustainable livelihood, and global benefit are environmental protection and ecosystem services. This is one meeting we had in 2011 in Chile, where we recognized the farmers by accrediting them for their maintenance of globally important agricultural heritage system. Of course, we need to have a condition for success. We need to be integrated across sectors. We need to promote diversification, as I have mentioned, enhance positive externalities and reduce negative externalities. We need to be knowledge-based and nature-based. We need to build on renewable assets, participatory and bottom-up, food sovereignty to be included, and use of mixture of instrument, economic, advisory, regulatory. So it is not just only about protection and conservation of the biodiversity. We need to bring really the complexity, the complex dimension of family farming in this picture if we want to conserve our biodiversity, particularly genetic resources for food and agriculture. So GIAHS has been a model of recognition of farmers' rights also, because it's about diversity, cultural diversity, culinary, curative, ecosystem diversity. There are plenty of knowledge systems, wisdom, religious belief, customs, which are sort of embedded in each agricultural heritage system, which ensure coexistence of human and nature. We have indigenous crops, traditional varieties, and better valued agrobiodiversity. GIAHS give back the identity, pride, and honor to our local people, farmers, and indigenous group. GIAHS approach is seen as a complementing national and local plans and programs. Biodiversity, again, is the life insurance policy for life itself, as our friend Kofi Annan some time ago said it in one of the international UN meetings. So this is my my presentation. I hope I did address issues that the Academy is expecting. In any case, I would be available to give you additional information, but in any case, you could go to the website of World Agriculture Heritage Systems, and this there is a lot of information, and also the connection to different, but also FAO has a website on GIAHS that it is important to review. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parviz. I would like to remind all speakers to send their presentation to email to IAS so that we can make something out of it and distribute it to participants.
Okay.
Now we will move. Is there any question for Dr. Parviz? Any questions or comments? Dr. Ephraim, please.
Hello, everybody, again, and thank you for the former speakers for this intelligent presentations. I want to give you an example from Turkey. And, I am the son of farmer, and I want to say that my grandfather producing some seeds, and there they can exchange their seeds between neighbors, and between actually they were doing some on-farm conservation. And on the old times of my grandfather, now I am the third generation. Now, because of the globalization, I can say we have to, I have to, as a scientist, I have to look for the local land traces from the local farmers now. I am looking for my grandfather's seeds at that times because of the globalization. Because if we didn't realize the on-farm conservation, as a comment of the previous speakers, as an example of the previous speakers, this is the dilemma. As you, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I just want to show that the dilemma of the generate between the generations. I want to hear a comment on my example from the Dr. Parviz, if it is possible. I'm sorry.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, obviously, the industrialization of agriculture, of course, has done a lot of damage. I could say I am not very pro-green revolution because I think, of course, as I said, we increased the production, but we lost a lot of other things. And we have to really reconsider family farming and particularly smallholders farming, which is still, as I said, they feed most of the people in the world, and they exist in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, and also in the Middle East. We really need to empower them and let them to do not only their life, but also to help our life, because we have migrated from where we were. I am the son of a farmer, and I migrated to not only from my country, but also to other places, in several places. Like I did my studies in France, and then I started to work in Haiti, and now then I worked in FAO, but now I am working with the Agriculture Heritage Foundation. So this is the kind of example. But the idea of agriculture heritage is to value these systems which existed, and they still exist. There are thousands of them which are still viable because people have to live with them. The only problem that they never get any attention from neither international community nor their governments. Often when the governments distribute seeds, they don't look into their own seeds, their own local seeds. They essentially import seeds from US, from England, from other places, or Netherlands, and make them to plant potato, which they not necessarily are used to eat. So we really need to connect our food heritage with agriculture heritage. That is so important, that to really look at local diet, because these diets have been more adapted to our environment. And often because of poverty, of course, they couldn't feed all of the people, but nevertheless, they are very, very rich and very, very diversified. So that's another very important thing. If we want to really work and help the health sort of sector, we need to look at our healthy food. And this healthy food is also food heritage that we have, like Mediterranean food heritage, like Japanese food heritage. So it is important to actually go back to look at our condition in each of our countries, in each of our, for example, I'm suggesting these days family agriculture heritage. Why not? I mean, why not, if a family has an agriculture heritage, one way or other try to valorize it and bring it to the attention of the others. I don't want to go too much in detail, but I would have definitely pleasure to discuss with you, if you like, through website and internet for further information.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Hello.
Okay.
Yes.
I would like to encourage ladies who are participants to ask some questions.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
Fadila, please, go ahead.
Dr. Asker from France.
Dr. Azhar, please, Fadila wants to talk.
Yes, I want to ask the question, you know, that climate change.
Dr. Azhar, please, Fadila wants to talk.
Yes, I go. Change is working against the biodiversity. We know that. But there's another factor which is working against the biodiversity are the international companies who are monopolizing the agriculture and trying to reduce the biodiversity. What do you think about that? The speaker, I'm talking.
Unmute, Dr.
I'm talking about the international corporations, big corporations who are working against the biodiversity by specializing in certain very specific crops. What's your opinion about that?
Microphone, Dr. Parviz.
Dr. Parviz, are you there?
Yes, I am unmuting it.
Yeah, okay.
Is it? Do you hear me now?
Can I ask again the question?
I heard it. Don't worry, I heard it.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, international companies, definitely, it is a very, very big challenge. Of course, the world is a world of the powerful companies, powerful people. Including, look at, we are behind Zoom, and this is not a very sort of popular way of discussing with each other. But nevertheless, I think it is the responsibility of the governments, responsibility of international communities like FAO, like other institutions, including academia, to essentially bring these questions and problems on the table. Like farmers' right was even, it had a lot of enemies. Even now, there is a lot of animosity against farmers' right, while the breeders' right is accepted by many, many countries, and by many countries, farmers' right, which is the basic right of access to genetic resources for themselves, at least, it is not that easy. So it is important to understand this. And of course, institutions like FAO, like UNESCO, like other institutions, including Islamic Academy, are the institution to promote, to go back to the root. We need to go back to our root to see, for example, why did we lose our food heritage? Why are we losing our agricultural heritage? Why, in spite of all the means, we are losing our access to land by a lot of companies which go and buy land and throw the farmers out of their land. So these are very, very important issues that it should be tackled. And I hope under the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, which is one of the means, they could really address some of these problems. But again, awareness raising is also important, and that's what I am doing. Thank you.
May I speak?
Dr. Fadila, please.
Okay, thank you, sir, to give me the floor to ask. Actually, I have the same question just now. He replied on that one, which is about the international collaboration or cooperation of the other institutions internationally. But also, I want just to give one comment that now, by mentioning all the factors that affected the sustainability of agriculture and our agricultural heritage and our food for either the normal people or for the poor farmers or others. But I think we should include one factor that is I never heard in all my meeting I attended either in FAO or through the conferences, that they should include not just the climate change, but we have a very important factor that is affected the Near East, which is the crisis happened in Near East, like war. We have the countries which is containing a very high diversity of food or agriculture products, like Yemen, like Syria. This is also affected, and we should put that as a factor, which is a crisis factor. It should be included as one of the affected factors that affect the biodiversity of agriculture and food. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions, especially from ladies? Would like to entertain some ladies.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Khalid, please. Dr. Khalid Aboulayna.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. And good to see you, Dr. Parviz, again. We met many times in the FAO. Now, the status about the essence of the agri-heritage sites is the land races. And the land races are being vanished nowadays. Now, whenever we go in missions for collecting the local land races in the hotspots of collection that we used to collect from, we end up with commercial varieties. Nowadays, the regular farmers or the subsidiary farmers who used to cultivate those traditional varieties, they are not cultivating them anymore. They are tempted by the high productability of the commercial varieties, and they sell them as if they are local land races. So even our gene banks, they are, of course, our gene bank at the National Agricultural Research Center in Jordan. It ended up with that I am paying money and safeguarding commercial varieties that are available overseas, and I'm not conserving my national heritage anymore. This issue of this kind of agri-heritage systems, they are glamorous ideas, and I am afraid they more or less similar to the designated KBAs. When we say, as per the IUCN, they identify key biodiversity areas. So you please correct me if I am wrong. It is more or less something like this. And please, if you could give us or enlighten us about any criteria, what are the major criteria behind designating certain area as agricultural heritage? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes, sure, I do.
Okay. Well, I fully agree with you. Unfortunately, many of seed varieties and species which are now used in many countries, they are actually modern seeds or hybrid seeds which have been created by research institutions, and of course then it has been either given in the beginning but later on sold to the governments, and governments is the easiest way to distribute this food as an incentive to the farmers. So it's the problem of the policies of the countries which has created this kind of thing. Now, this is the wrong side, and unfortunately me or even you or even some bigger people in many countries cannot really completely address this situation. Of course, we have done capacity building, we have done technical assistance to empower farmers and their right and local seeds, etc. But unfortunately, it is not as successful as it should be. But coming back to agricultural heritage, it is not only about nomination. First, it's about recognition by the government that they have a lot of assets in their country that they should look into. There are 5 criteria. The first one, in any agricultural heritage, you can go to our website and everything is written there. The first criteria is sustainable livelihood of farmer community where they are living in these agricultural heritage. The second one is agrobiodiversity and biodiversity in general, and particularly the biodiversity of global significance. For example, some rice varieties, some potato varieties, which are very important for countries and for people. The third is indigenous knowledge. It goes back to the fact that farmers know their environment, they know their agroecological situation, and this knowledge is very important, has to be there and has to be protected. The fourth is cultural aspect of agriculture, including food culture. It is written. And the last one, but not least, is also landscape diversity, because landscape diversity actually is a part of bigger programs of UNESCO, bigger programs of IUCN, etc., and it has been on the table for a long time. And if an agricultural system does not conserve its environment, its landscape, it is not going to survive, particularly because of climate change. So these are the 5 criteria. But the good side of agricultural heritage sort of nomination, not only it empowers local communities and countries, and of course countries pay more attention to those systems because it has been recognized by international community, just like in UNESCO, but it is also important for labeling some of the food which is coming from these agricultural heritage. So the communities not only receive support, technical support or policy support, but also they receive economic support by, for example, selling their products from this agricultural heritage, which, for example, our foundation is actually labeling and helping. For example, in the Philippines, we are doing in Japan, we are doing in China, we are doing in Chile. So that is exactly maybe a small contribution to what we could do and to how to face the future of agriculture, which is in danger because of the climate change and many changes.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Parviz. I think we are lagging behind in our programs and we have to move